All right,
Indian media needs to get a life and attack the government properly.
We've heard two completely contrarian viewpoints. I want to get John Elliott into this. You've been in India, you see the Indian media, you've worked abroad as well. What are the differences? Do you think this is a wake-up call for all of us here?
Well, first of all, Lord Menton Desai made exactly that same remark a few days ago, and he was contradicted then, and I'll contradict him this time. Of course the Indian media goes for politicians. Of course it attacks them. He's missing the point, and he said it twice now in 3 days, and it's the second time he's been contradicted. The question is why they go for the media, why they go for the targets. Do they go for targets, political targets, because they think those political targets need to be criticised or analysed, or do they do it because they've been put up to it by somebody else? And most of what we read in the Indian press is, of course, planted by other people. There's very little original thought, there's very little original analysis, and I know personally that when stories don't suit them, they make them up so they do. The quality of journalism here is appalling. The quality of journalism in Britain has shown not to be brilliant. I also think it's a pretty small step to go from a sting to tapping phones, and I would forecast that after all this fuss, somebody will be tapping phones in this country extremely soon.
Bharat, do you want to respond to the charge that most of what we carry as so-called investigations are actually plants by Western interests?
Well, let me first say we are different, but by and large, yes. I mean, newspapers tend to spend very little money on news. There was a case of a major newspaper in India didn't send a correspondent to Kargil to do detailed reporting. Thought it could be done from Delhi. Very little money spent on news. There isn't time enough. There aren't resources to do investigative work. Only now some newspapers have investigative bureaus. We are one of them. We tell people take a month. Go into a particular field and come back with a brilliant story. You have some investigative reporters, so that's slowly happening. But by and large, does the Indian media take on the establishment? I would say no, it doesn't. We are far too deferential. I agree with Lord Meghnad. They say we are very deferential to authority. It's probably our feudal past or colonial past or whatever it is. We are afraid of ministers. We are afraid of phone calls from ministers. And what would he say? Would he be angry? That we have to get rid of that. And one of the reasons why, again, I don't want to sort of sound like brand ambassador for Mail Today, which I am, but I'm saying that we've been able to make a space for ourselves in Delhi's crowded market because we were different, because we were irreverent. Now, that irreverence is required. It requires not on the scale of Mail Today, but on a much larger scale.
Okay, Farooq Dondi, as a commissioning producer as well, your sense of investigative bureaus and what is okay, what is not. Phone hacking is clearly not okay. But the issue is, do you believe in the pursuit of investigations, journalists are going way too far? And what's your sense of whether the Indian media needs to take a very close look of this whole fiasco and this whole controversy in Britain?
I think you started correctly by trying to ask us to compare Britain and India. In Britain, what's happened is that nobody much cared about hacking when the issue was the sex lives of footballers or the sex lives of some entertainment person. They really began to be revolted, repulsed by the actions of News of the World in hacking the phones of victims of crime and of Millie Dowler especially. That's when it came out. Now, hacking in itself is an instrument, it's an illegal instrument here. In India, basically what goes on is that politicians, the entire nexus of politicians and corporate government and corporations and the civil service, there is corruption that is endemic, as we all know, in India. And I don't mind if hacking or government hacking or phone tapping or stings or investigation are used to overthrow that larger corruption, however illegal hacking may be in India itself. I don't want them to pursue personalities, but of course the public's taste will dictate whether they chase somebody or the other, but that is neither here nor there. Sexual peccadilloes exposed in a newspaper. But Indians, the real task of Indian journalism is, through whatever means necessary, to chase the corruption of Indian public life.